Hi, I'm Spencer Christian. On this episode of Tracks Ahead, we'll visit an interpretive park in eastern Michigan that holds a steamy surprise. We'll visit a man who has collected toy trains from the Louis Marx Company, arguably the largest manufacturer of toy trains. And we'll get to see a recreation of the 1949 Lionel Showroom layout. Now, everyone has heard of the famous Japanese bullet trains. Started in 1964, they were the world's first high-speed trains, and they've continued to evolve into even faster rail transportation.
When you mention Japan, people immediately conjure up images of fast trains. With help from the Japan National Tourist Organization and Japan Airlines, Tracks Ahead visited Tokyo to get a first-hand look at the high-speed rail system. They are called Shinkansen, which literally means new trunk line. These graceful machines combine creature comforts with extraordinary speed and reliability. In this country of large and small islands, the city centers are bursting at the seams. But out in the mountainous countryside, which is dotted with active volcanoes, much of the land is too fragile to build anything on. Since Japan is almost 2,000 miles long from top to bottom, the country needed a train network to accommodate its growing population. Perhaps that's why Japan was the first country to build dedicated railway lines for high-speed travel. The old network of narrow-gauge lines was forced to take indirect routes from city to city, and they were slow. But the Shinkansen are standard gauge lines. They use tunnels and viaducts to go through and over obstacles rather than around them. Construction of the first segment of the Takedo Shinkansen between Tokyo and Osaka began in 1959. The line opened in 1964, just in time for the Tokyo Olympics amidst much fanfare. It was an immediate success, reaching the 100 million passenger mark in less than 3 years, and 1 billion passengers in 1976. The first Shinkansen trains ran up to 125 miles per hour.
The Tokido Shinkansen started in October 1964, and it took 4 hours between Tokyo and Osaka Station. It was shortened to 3 hours and 10 minutes the following year. In 1992, the 300 model Nozomi made its debut, which shortened the time to 2.5 hours. The train models are the 300, 500, and 700. The N700 is under test run at the moment and will be ready in the summer of 2007.
Based on the theme of more speed, more comfort, more beauty, the N700 series Shinkansen is the fastest train on the line, entering service in 2007. Trains have a maximum speed of 300 kilometers an hour and tilt up to 1 degree, which allows the trains to maintain high speeds on curves. This has reduced the travel time between Tokyo and Osaka to 2 hours and 25 minutes, cutting 5 minutes off the previous schedule. The N700's aero double-wing nose shape provides optimal aerodynamic performance, while the interior offers a refined, peaceful, and tranquil riding space. Comfortable seats, high-intensity lighting, and such amenities as leg warmers all add to passenger comfort. Today, the bullet trains carry over 154 million passengers each year, and they are very much a part of the Japanese way of life. One of the reasons for the success of the bullet trains is their safety and reliability. Passengers expect them to be on time, and they usually are, often to within a fraction of a minute. Here at the control center, safety and efficiency are primary goals of the staff.
The main purpose of the center is to allow the Tokido Shinkansen to operate at the highest speed of 270 kilometers per hour and in high-density intervals, which are 3 minutes in peak times. There is daily massive traffic between Tokyo and Osaka. The center performs daily control to maintain safety, stability, and accuracy. Since the inauguration of the Takedo Shinkansen in 1964, there have been no accidental casualties by train operation. We're very proud of that. From Tokyo to Osaka, we average about 300 train services. Today, for example, we have 316 train operations. The center is divided into 6 sections. Each section receives information from various places. We process all this information and instruct the train drivers and conductors in order to maintain safe operations.
The bullet trains keep getting faster and faster with each new generation. In 2003, a Shinkansen train reached a world speed record of 361 miles per hour. With trains running at such high speeds and carrying millions of passengers each day, maintaining every aspect of the Shinkansen trains is critical to their safety. The system shuts down between midnight and 6 a.m. every day for a team of night workers to do their jobs.
We periodically inspect, repair, and clean the Tokido Shinkansen. Complete minor inspections are held every 48 hours. There are on average 19 complete train formations. One formation consists of 16 carriages. Major inspections will be held every 30 days, or 30,000 kilometers of running mileage. This will be done to 2 formations a day. Complete cleaning will be done to 16 formations a day. This work will be carried out by about 600 people, day and night, by JR employees and cooperative companies. We do the maintenance during the day in between operations, and after operations at night. In the minor inspection, we check and change parts regularly. We check the condition and function of pantographs, tracks, running facilities, brakes, electric meters, and closing door operations. On the major inspection, we again check pantographs, depending on running mileage, special high-pressure route facilities, the main and supplemental circuit facilities, control circuits, door closers, brakes, trucks, meters, main and supplemental interior facilities, and dielectric resistance units.
Somehow, all this behind-the-scenes work doesn't seem to affect the cheerful and courteous Japan Railways employees. Passengers from outside Japan are often amazed at the professionalism shown by the Shinkansen staff. Conductors bow when they enter and exit the cars. Attendants offer food and drinks from carts with elegance. It's very easy to buy tickets for the Shinkansen, and reservations are encouraged, especially for more popular trips. Just look for this green logo to find the Japan Railways office at the station. There you can both make your reservation and buy a ticket.
JR Central and JTB have co-developed a plan called the Shinkansen Tour, which is a package of return tickets and accommodations of popular tourist cities like Tokyo and Kyoto. The details can be obtained on our website, and it is possible to purchase tickets at hotels after entry into Japan.
Passengers can look forward to even more comforts in the near future. There are plans to equip many Shinkansen trains with wireless internet access. So you'll be able to get on board, have lunch, check your email, and you'll arrive at your stop before you know it. With all of this, speed, comfort, safety, reliability, it's no wonder that the bullet trains have become a symbol for modern-day Japan.
High-speed rail service in Japan continues to expand as technology allows. In the mid-1900s, the largest toy maker in the United States was the Louis Marx Company. It made a wide variety of toys, including trains, and there were so many variations of each item that it's a collector's dream. Let's meet a man who can put an image to these varied items.
Before there were detailed scale models, electric trains were just toys. From the 1930s to the 1970s, nobody manufactured sturdier, more affordable toy trains than Louis Marx. Today there are few collections of Marx toy trains and accessories that can compare to the one Ray Cox has assembled in this refurbished barn in southern Rhode Island.
What got me interested was I had a toy train as a child. Went around Christmas. It was a Louis Marx train. I retired at 55. I had a golden handshake, and I said, well, what am I going to do in retirement? So I decided, and I always was a collector of something. You know, as a kid, I collected stamps, something, but then I said, I got the trains. I mean, I never knew this was going to grow this big. Louis Marx. Well, he's the toy king back in the 50s. It wasn't just trains. They had all kinds of play sets. You couldn't beat him. He produced a lot of toys. Like the tin plate gas stations, I don't normally collect. I got some of the older ones that went with the trains, but I don't get I have one here that I let the kids play with, because then I say, play with it, it's a toy. And I let them play with it. And they're hard to break.
This extensive collection is the result of Ray's years of patient searching, shopping, and bargaining, and his development of a truly sophisticated eye. And while the play sets are certainly a source for joy, Ray has focused mainly on the trains themselves.
Most of my rarest are my Joy line, which was started in the 20s right out of Girard Company when he bought the Girard Company. And those would be my oldest and rarest. I got some of his first trains he made, the Joy line trains, and I only collect up to around 1975, 76 when they kind of went out of business when Quaker Oats bought the company, and then it faded out. A lot of your pre-wars, you got some pressed steel, tin plate. Then later on, in about from 1940 up, they went to the plastic. And of course, some of it's mixed, plastic and steel. I started out definitely just metal, but then I did venture into the plastic. I have a lot of the 8-wheel tin plate from the 30s and 40s. I like the lithographing tin on the metal. It's the tin plate. I like the lithographing especially, and they made a lot of it. There are some sets where he only made it for 1 year, they're rare. I was looking for a Seaboard B unit, they call it. I found it because it was only in one set for 1 year. You know, I did that I believe it was 1953, and then that was it. I have one prototype, an Army tank. I cherish something like that. Now, I don't really look for prototypes because they're rare, and usually another Marx collector has it, they keep them.
Of course, even a savvy collector loves to watch trains run. So Ray created a layout that would incorporate both the Marx trains and the Marx toys.
The layout, I decided I wanted to try to scale it to the best I could. It's hard to scale it because it was made as a toy. Most of the buildings from the play sets, because Marx was big on play sets. But I don't do the play sets. I look for just the tin buildings, which I could use in the layout to run with the trains, trying to narrow it down and scale it the best to my ability, which is tough to do, but you can do it. It's total Marx, except for figurines. He did not make metal figurines. The figurines are all European, the ones I have up there. But the track, transformers, everything is Marx and the tin plate. I use shingles for roads, stones. I use lichen, a lot of moss, peat moss that I got right on my own property. Ledge stones, I didn't have to go out and buy it, it's here. Dried flowers, pick them, you spray paint them green, you get a tree. It's actually pretty simple and very reasonable.
Thanks to Ray Cox for preserving an important element of our past, the sheer joy of childhood. Through his love and determination, he has helped us all, if only for a few minutes, to be kids again.
Most of us never got the chance to see the 1949 Lionel Showroom layout in New York. We'll get to see that in a moment thanks to the efforts of a Missouri train and car enthusiast. First, though, the Flint, Michigan area is famous for its car manufacturing, but there's something here for rail fans too. Let's look in at an interpretive county park where we'll find a railroad.
True rail fans often try to include a train outing during their family vacations. It can be a visit to a rail museum, a famous layout, or a ride on an authentic steam locomotive. If you find yourself in the Flint, Michigan area, a trip to the Crossroads Village and Huckleberry Railroad should be on your agenda. This particular branch of the Flint-Pear-Marquette Railroad, which ran the 15-minute trip from Flint to Otter Lake, dates back to 1872. Eventually, the track was extended for another 4.5 miles to Fostoria, making the entire trip from Flint to Fostoria 19.5 miles. People used to say that the train was so slow that you could get off, pick the wild huckleberries that grew along the tracks, and then climb back on board with ease. More recently, the railroad was acquired by the Genesee County Parks, making Huckleberry a jewel in the crown of the park system.
Crossroads Village and the Huckleberry Railroad is one of Genesee County's primary tourist attractions. In fact, it's the largest tourist attraction in Genesee County. And people come from all over the state of Michigan, all over the Midwest, all over the world, in fact, to visit Crossroads Village and the Huckleberry Railroad. It's particularly interesting and exciting for people who are rail fans. We get email from all over the world asking us about our equipment and asking us about our programming. And rail fans are just, well, there's a reason that fans is short for fanatics, because they are really passionate about the Huckleberry Railroad.
A 40-minute train ride takes lucky passengers along Mott Lake and the scenic Genesee recreation area.
We have 2 steam engines. The engine behind us is former Rio Grande number 464. currently the only operating K-27 in the country. Built in 1903 and came to the Huckleberry in about 1980, and it's been in service since its last overhaul for about 2 years now. A second engine is more commonly known as number 2. Currently it's painted up as number 152 for its original owner, the U.S. government. It's a Baldwin-built 10-wheeler, built in 1920, and it has been the mainstay of the Huckleberry steam power since the park opened in 1976.
The completely restored Baldwin locomotives provide enough power to carry more than 400 people on its narrow-gauge track. Both locomotives are over 100 years old. People have made interesting observations about the way they look going down the tracks.
The most common story that I've heard is when you watch her going down the tracks with the rods and counterweights, she looks like a hen with its wings out guarding its chicks. And the mud apparently comes from one of the divisions that she was running on where there was a lot of sloppy roadbed, so she'd come back covered with mud.
Each of the historic coaches offers a unique glimpse into the bygone days of steam railroads. There are 11 original and replica wooden coaches, followed by an original caboose.
The coaches we have from several different railroads. We have 2 from the Denver and Rio Grande, 1 from the Rio Grande Southern, and then about half a dozen cars that were built and ran for various railroads in Mexico.
Naturally, keeping the locomotives running and the coaches looking attractive requires a lot of care.
We do all of the maintenance work in-house. We have a very well-equipped machine shop in the locomotive end of the shop complex. And the other end of the building is our coach shop, and we do the majority of the woodwork and restoration in that structure. From time to time, we do bring in outside contractors or send stuff out for economic reasons, but we primarily do everything we need to do on the site.
After your trip on the Huckleberry Railroad, you can relax by enjoying a 35-minute excursion on the Genesee Bell paddle wheel river boat. It's a replica of the paddle boats used in Mark Twain's era. The Bell has an open-air upper deck for sightseeing, and the lower deck is climate-controlled throughout the summer and fall seasons. The rest of Crossroads Village is filled with 34 historic structures for you to explore. This 51-acre village features everything from working mills and shops to private homes, all from the 1800s. There's even a one-room schoolhouse. Throughout the village, each quaint structure comes alive with artisans and working craftsmen who offer hands-on demonstrations.
In the early 70s, the Flint area was going through what was then called urban renewal. And a number of historic structures were being torn down in order to make way for highways through this area. And rather than being torn down, some folks wanted to save the buildings, and the Parks Commission owned this property, and they said, well, can we just move the buildings there and leave them until we can figure out something to do with them?
Every aspect of the Huckleberry Railroad and Crossroads Village is a living history lesson, a place where families and friends can step into a bygone era and enjoy the pleasures of simpler times.
One of the things that really makes this railroad unique is it's one of the few places in the country that you can go and ride in a 1880s, 1890s wood car and really experience the period railroad.
For the folks of Washington, Missouri, spotting Dean Biddick cruising around town in one of his vintage roadsters or pickup truck is a sure sign that spring has arrived. And when Dean isn't riding around in his antique automobiles throughout the summer, he's restoring them in this large, climate-controlled shop next to his house. But as the leaves start to fall and winter approaches, Dean shifts gears to enjoy his other pride and joy, this impressive 11 by 21-foot model railroad. Entering Dean's model train room is like stepping into another world. thanks to the hand-painted mural which perfectly matches the colors and hues of Dean's Lionel Gauge layout. Painted by a local artist, the mural features hot air balloons drifting in the background. Although Dean had been building layouts since he was a boy, there were two major influences on this particular layout.
I saw the first issue of Classic Toy Trains, and it had Dick Kuhn on the front of it, and he was the CEO for Lionel Trains. And I also read in that article that he liked antique cars, of which I do too. It so happens that the Model A National was being held in Dearborn, and I wrote him a letter stating that I was going to be riding in a Model A and would like to tour the Lionel plant. So I wrote him a letter. Unbelievable, he answered that letter and invited me to come see Car Rail. So when I went in there, here I see all the cars, and then I also see all the trains, thinking someday I was going to build a building that would allow me to do those kinds of things. I saw the 1949 showroom layout, a neat drawing about that. So I thought I will try and duplicate the 1949 showroom layout.
There are some key differences between Dean's current layout and Lionel's showroom display. Even at 16 by 32 feet, Dean had to scale down a bit to fit his space. And you'd certainly never see one of these in a Lionel showroom. Yes, it's an American flyer up in those mountains. Dean had two reasons for putting it there.
Something called forced perspective, and that is as higher you go up, the smaller things get. So American Flyer being S gauge is a smaller scale, so it makes you think you're looking further away. The other is, my cousin and I argued continuously for the past 50 years which was better, American Flyer or Lionel. Santa brought him an American Flyer, Santa brought me a Lionel, so we argue about that all the time, so I had to put an American Flyer in this layout for my cousin.
And just to prove that he still believes Lionel was the victor, Dean crowned the center of his layout with an exact replica from the Lionel showroom, the JLC Manufacturing Company. This stainless steel bridge is another feature that differs from the Lionel showroom.
I needed a certain length bridge for this layout. It went over the log loader in the back. And I met a gentleman who was a welder by trade, very talented, Jim Ballman, and he made this bridge for this layout. When I saw how neat it was, I thought, have you ever thought about selling these to other railroad enthusiasts? I said no. So that was kind of the beginning of a company called Stainless Unlimited. So we make a variety of different bridges now. We advertise in classic toy trains, old gauge railroading. We also advertise in garden railways. And also, we have a website, www.stainlessunlimited.com. So that's mostly where our business comes from, is through the mail order.
Dean has managed to bring his love for Lionel trains into his day job as a professor of business and marketing at East Central College in Missouri.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good.
Is your day good?
Yeah. Can't complain.
Good, good. Got a big weekend planned?
I wish.
Hopefully. I use the history of Lionel in a marketing class basically because of the evolution of the train market and the evolution of our population. No doubt the baby boomers, the group to follow, still the largest segment of the population. And we're ever changing, and Lionel had to change. If you look at some of the early trains were standard gauge trains, and back in the late 30s like that, the homes were huge, you had plenty of room. Later on that changed, and you look into the 1950s and the 1960s, subdivisions grew, homes got smaller, thus the trains got smaller, and we get to O gauge. Also, our interests changed, and Lionel went through a period of lower sales. Space age was popular in the late 50s, early 60s. They made a space train, and you can see how they were basically trying to go after that segment of the population to change their interests. So ever changing as we are today.
Although he's retired now, Dean still teaches part-time. And he still loves to share his admiration for Lionel model trains and antique cars with the next generation of collectors.
Preserving history is important to me. That's why I run post-war mostly on here. That's why I restore cars back to their original condition, that we can kind of take a little step back in history and see what Lionel trains and antique cars were all about.
Dean has plans to expand his layout room and garage to enable him to display more of his collection. Well, that's it for this episode. Be sure to join us next time for more Tracks Ahead.